The Last of Us Part 2. The game that turned out Game Awards 2020 inside out by winning the prize in 7 categories.
Congratulations to Naughty Dog, Game of the Year for The Last of Us Part 2.
The game that received a mass hate by his audience. The game that was acclaimed almost by all the critics and buried deep down in a forgotten cemetery by a huge part of its fanbase. Did it suck? Was it good? Here is The Last of Us Part 2, 3 years later, beyond the hate. Minor spoilers will be all around the video. I think they are unavoidable. I won't spoil the exact ending or some major plot points, but you may successfully guess some things using the information given by me. If you reach a moment that makes you feel like you know too much about the game, I strongly advise you to escape. The first installment of the franchise was a game that took seriously his characters, their relationships, their world and the freedom given to the player to defeat enemies the way he likes. It was not the most innovative game ever. It was not the most surprising game ever. It was not the most well-thought world ever. Neither the most dramatic story in gaming, on my opinion. But I believe it was the best at something. The immersion it was throwing its players into. I never felt so much in the game before The Last of Us. I have seen a lot of people not into games watching The Last of Us interested in what's going on. Even my padre. So although The Last of Us does not have the type of a story that I am into the most, it definitely has a touching story that is important enough to discuss. As I said, the thing The Last of Us Part 1 was the best was immersion. Every move, every reaction of the people we see on the screen was so realistic that it made me feel like they were here or I was there. I did care what was going to happen to Ellie and Joel, but I didn't give a fuck about anyone else in that story. As I see, people like the other characters too. I barely remember them. For me, what matters and what I remember from the first game was the beginning, the end and the interactions between Joel and Ellie. The rest of the characters and the obstacles they passed through were easily replaceable, easily forgettable. I can't say the same for The Last of Us Part 2 though. Thanks to its story and narrative, The Last of Us Part 2 has the same kind of immersion, but bigger and better. Look, the story is subjective. You may like it, you may not like it. The important part here is to accept the decisions made and to evaluate your experience in that way. For a racing game, you shall expect racing, you shall not expect spaceship battles. If the game wants to surprise you with that, it's okay, but you shall not expect that. The cover of The Last of Us Part 2 shows you Ellie covered in blood and anger. She's alone, and something bad is going to happen to make her full of anger. The first 2 hours of the game clearly shows what is it about. It gives you the control of a character you have never met before and signals you that this character is important. I think this is pretty enough to set expectations properly. Most of the people do not like this game because the death of a beloved character. But the cover clearly shows something terrible is going to happen. You shall expect this. This is the premise of the game and it is clearly messaged to you via the cover and the first 2 hours of the game. The rest is a revenge story and shall be treated as a revenge story. I know that some of the important plot points from the first game are not so important in the second one, like the immunity. The truth is that the story playing out in the second game could happen to anyone in any story. It was not necessary to happen to the characters from the first game. I'm sure if this game was a brand new franchise, no one would complain and easily accept the story. But Naughty Dog decided to develop this story in the Last of Us universe with our beloved characters to emphasize the emotional effect of the story. I think this kind of a decision takes balls to make, and I respect it. I can understand them, and I can evaluate The Last of Us Part 2 as a standalone revenge story. And frankly, I think it's a good one, because we, as the player, really feel this burning hate inside of our character, and we kill brutally the characters that step in our path of revenge. But the story is not cliché. We do not simply kill and continue. Various emotions are being developed underneath the hate of our main character. It's not just a revenge story, but a journey throughout the emotions of Ellie. I love the similarities and differences built between Ellie and Abby. They both grow up in a messed up world, they both lose someone precious and seek for revenge, they both experience post-traumatic stress disorder, they both meet up with people that they love, and they both have to decide shall they stay with them or continue to seek their cold revenge. Abby is afraid from heights. Ellie is not. She wants to go as high as possible to explore the universe. Ellie kills animals. Abby pets them. Ellie kills with her knife even the enemies she took down with stealth. Abby just makes them lose consciousness. These similarities and differences make you get to know them better and question the difference in the way they handle their enemies. Is Ellie more brutal than Abby because her anger is fresh? Does anger disappear with time? Is the passage of time enough to go back to normal? Or taking revenge is the only way forward? Due to the fact that The Last of Us Part 2 gives us the opportunity to experience the story from different perspectives, makes us to feel like someone else, to see things from the other side and ask a lot of questions. I think this completely takes it to another level in immersion. Also makes a flat story with forgettable characters more rememberable. I already said that I don't give a fuck and don't remember the characters and what's between the beginning and the end of the first game. The fate of the second game won't be the same. Here I had the chance to understand the characters better, to see them in a different light. If this story was a one-sided revenge story with emotional uncertainties, it was going to be a complete bullshit for me. But the goddamn narrative adds a brand new second layer to it and completely changes the story. The narrative, the way the story is told, matters. It takes the immersion of The Last of Us to another level, a level never reached before. The gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2 is bigger and better in every aspect. Now you can jump, go prone, smash windows, dodge, and make infected attack your enemies. These things may not sound like groundbreaking developments, but they make the combat system in this game much more dynamic than the previous one. Dodging enemies is incredibly useful and satisfying. I have never enjoyed dodging so much, and it was definitely a downside of the first game. Jumping is not incredibly useful though, but for sure it adds to the experience. Jumping on water when in danger is pretty handy, and these attacks you can make when landing are amazing. It's a big shame that I never thought about and tried it throughout my gameplay. Another thing that I did not experience is shooting when my character was on the ground. I went under a lot of cars and trains in order to hide, but I never shot anyone while doing so. The scenarios that can play out in such cases are very exciting. Yes, these scenes can actually happen during the gameplay. Making infected attack your human enemies is also possible and pretty useful. You can't do it anywhere because there are no people and infected at the same place all the time, which makes total sense. If people live somewhere, in order them to stay peaceful, they need to clean up these places from infected. That's why you don't see them together so much. But when you do, making infected attack people is pure joy. Don't be fooled though, making your enemies kill each other does not let you free. People will run from the infected will get shot by the people, but if they came across to you, they will still attack you. The challenge is still there. Smashing the windows on the other side is a pretty intuitive way to break in shops and small buildings, and it can be used to make noise and attract enemies. All these improvements make The Last of Us experience more fluent than ever. The fact that every NPC and every dog has a name increases the immersion. Animations and facial impressions in this game are in another level. It's so satisfying to see such kind of things during the gameplay itself, not just in the cutscenes. The enemies are not so easy to take down. When in intense combat, infected and people mostly take multiple hits before they die. Dogs are pain in the ass. They track your smell and break your peace. Silencers are not useful enough if you have hard times headshotting with a joystick. Patience is the key. If you wanna go full stealth, you need to wait the enemies to move on to spots far from the others. The bow in this game is kind of OP. This was my absolute favorite weapon, because it was able to kill most of the enemies with a single shot, silently, without needing to headshot them. But all what I said till now is kind of variable, because The Last of Us Part 2 provides an advanced difficulty adjustment system never seen before. You can adjust the hardness of the challenges, the strength of your character, enemies, allies, the hardness of stealth, and the availability of resources. The game provides highly customizable experience fit for all kind of players, which is a huge pro. I played on default settings and I think the difficulty is okay. There were only few segments in the game I succeeded to pass stealth only. In the most of them I was detected at some point and fought for my survival. In these moments I was spending my precious ammo and needed to find more nearby. The level design was incredibly helpful for that. There were enough places to hide, to get lost, and to find equipment in order to continue the fight. The level design made my interactions with the environment seamless, my combat with the enemies a true survival experience. But there was one segment where I was not able to approach my enemies with stealth at all. This farm with corn all around it was looking so stealth friendly that it felt like the only appropriate way to deal with it is to go stealth. But the game did not allow me to do it. I had shifts, but the fucking triangle was not appearing there, so I killed them all. Later on, I learned that the stealth is actually possible here. I just went into a bug. This bug may be eliminated now, but it still could happen to you on another place in another part of the game. So I think it's good to know. But no matter what was waiting for me, I felt really disturbed every time when entering an unknown dark location. Every time I broke into a new place, I said to myself,
"Oh shit. Here we go again."
I was thrilled to say the least. I don't know if we can tell this game a horror game, but it was definitely the game with the highest tension I played. The tension was so high that some of the things the game was offering to me felt so irrelevant, like crafting and reading notes. I felt like doing these things is counterintuitive. I wanted to get rid of this fucking place as soon as possible. I wanted to find these assholes and take my revenge as soon as possible. So my opinion about the crafting and skill systems is that they were okay technically, but I would rather prefer if they were not existing in the first place. Companions in this game play an important role. I mean both their lack and existence. The existence of them made me feel safer and better. They were able to take down enough enemies to help me. I was really happy when we were clearing out infected and they were eliminating the last infected while I was taking down the one priority. That's why later on their lack felt very unsecure to me. I really like some of the gameplay choices the game offered to me. To be able to take hostages was pretty cool, but the really cool part of the game was what I experienced here. This soldier could have died by my last shot, but the game made him bend the knee. I was able to give him an instant death with my gun, or something much better, a brutal death. I took his own weapon and smashed it through his chest. It was so satisfying. The gameplay of this game really gave me the opportunity to feel the bloodthirst of the character, and it also made me say enough. I reached the point where I was done with the revenge. I stopped to press any button of the joystick because I did not want my character to continue. I think that does matter. Making the player to feel something, to take him through a path of emotions. That matters. With the emotions and combat freedom the game provides, I think this game did a fantastic job. It was a true gaming experience.
Don't move!
I already briefly introduced you to the level design, but there is much more to say about it. There is a lot of thought put into the level design of Last of Us Part 2. Most of the levels are explorable both horizontally and vertically, so you need to be aware of everything that's going on in order to survive. I was attacked unexpectedly due to it multiple times. But no worries, because thoughtfully designed levels of the game allow me to get lost. There are levels where you can move from floor to floor, levels where you can jump into the water and appear behind your enemies, hide in the grass or under the cars. Levels here are not just small corridors or big empty fields. They are full with places to take cover or tiny slits to escape. Being thoughtfully designed on one side, on the other side the levels are aesthetically pleasing. No matter you're watching a storm, sunset or a primal execution, the atmosphere and cinematography are so pleasing that you feel like you're watching a movie. Walking among the ruins of humanity was never so satisfying before. Sometimes the tone of the game is so dark that you feel inside of Apocalypse Now by Ford Coppola. And everything is so realistic. You can see that glass bottles, guns and grenades do not appear out of nothing in the hands of our character. She takes them from her backpack. Everything is animated so carefully that what you see feels alive. It feels real. Did you see how Ellie reacted to the gunshot? It feels real, and realism makes you feel uncomfortable. This atmosphere accompanied by this music made me so stressed that I felt the need to stop, to take a fresh breath before going to the next dark, creepy, forgotten basement full with infected. I felt the tension in my veins. I experienced the trauma in my own mind. The only thing that can and breaks the experience are few minor glitches. I experienced some. Haha, Joel needs to pass to my side, but his animation does not kick in. I guess now I need to load the game from the last checkpoint. Oh god, why the fuck I ate that last burger? Jesus Christ. They were not a big deal, but I think you should know that. But the elements that can tear apart the realism are so less that if I was not going to make this video, I would barely remember. Most of the time the experience of the game is smooth as butter. The immersion tasty as aged wine. I think this game is an absolute beast when it comes to design. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm joking, I don't care what the fuck you think. The atmosphere is spectacular, amazing and terrifying. That's it.
Talking away. I don't know what I'm to say, I'll say it anyway. Today's another day to find you shying away. I'll be coming for you, love, okay?
I know that a lot of people actually didn't play the game but developed an opinion about it. I think they need to try it. Second-hand experience is not an experience. And this game is all about the experience of being someone else. The Last of Us Part 2 is a game that has made strong decisions. You may like them, you may not like them. But more than anything, The Last of Us Part 2 is an experience. You never know if you will like it or not until you try it. I tried it and it's amazing. I wish you try it too and see if you agree or not. The thing I like about The Last of Us Part 2 the most is that it knows the power of games. Music is great, books are great, movies are great, theater is great, but the games are great in their own way. This is the medium that can put you in the shoes of someone else the best way possible. That's why empathy plays a big role in this game. This is how you make someone to evaluate the circumstances from a different perspective and understand others. The Last of Us Part 2 understands the power of game medium and uses it as a leverage. And that is fucking amazing.